Hey, it's Matt O'Leary, and here we go. This is the top 30 album countdown of 2024. We got tons of great stuff for you here. And by we, I mean me. I always find that weird. Like, you're not like a big deal, but you still say we. 2024 was a great year in the sense that a lot of these picks, probably like a third or half, came as recommendations from friends. So it wasn't quite as insular and personal as it has been in previous years. Just my experience with music. I'm part of this kind of progressive rock YouTube fam, as we call it. So a lot came from them, but also just other friends, also longtime subscribers and commenters on the channel. So I truly appreciate that. And just know, if you're leaving comments with recommendations, I'm listening to those because I don't get like hundreds of comments on my videos. So I'm definitely checking those out. I mentioned progressive rock, but I'm really into a range of genres, eclectic stuff from alt rock, indie rock. Progressive pop is sort of my lane. Lots of psychedelia, lots of jazz influences, lots of singer-songwriter stuff and folk as well, maybe a pinch of metal. And I'm kind of a music formalist. I'm learning about myself, which is that I really appreciate the core elements of music, the melodies, the harmonies, the rhythms, and their intricacies, their progressiveness. Even more so than I appreciate social context or cultural context. So with that little preamble, let's get into it with my top 30 albums of the year. In this video, I'm going to do numbers 30 through 11, and then I'm going to do a part 2 with my top 10 albums of the year. Whew, so exciting. At number 30 is actually one that was sent to me by a subscriber. This is Martin Van Kryenberg from Houston with his album The Heavenly Scrolls Book of Bear. This is the first of what's promised to be 8 albums covering the 88 constellations in our solar system. So ambitious. And this is very much post-rock, and apparently the others will explore other genres, so ambitious. And the music totally matches that ambition. I still haven't quite got to the bottom of this one. Every time I listen, I pick up something new. There's just a deep well of sounds here. But I will be honest, I'm worried about him finishing because it feels a little bit like the Sufjan 50 States thing where it's like, really? All 50? At number 29 is the new solo album from Dr. Dog drummer Eric Slick called New Age Rage. This is something totally different for Eric Slick too. It's kind of this danceable, Prince-inspired, all these chintzy vintage synth sounds and sort of this dawn of the internet aesthetic. Very highly produced. There's a lot going on these tracks, lots of bells and whistles, but the songs at the core are strong. At number 28 is Australian artist Wesley Fuller with All Fuller, No Filler. This is very late 60s, early 70s pop rock, very Lemon Twigs-esque in that sense, with a little bit of glam in there and jangle pop and a little psych and power pop. We go from Australia to Costa Rica, of all places, with number 27. This is one of my prog metal finds of the year. It's the band Giant Sleeper with the album Hyperliminal. And at number 26, it's the former frontman of the Band of Horses, which was really big when I was, in high school years, kind of that indie folk revival that happened at the end of the aughts. It's Tyler Ramsay with New Lost Ages. This is a very pleasant album, but it's also very impactful thematically. It's kind of this alt country, folk rock, indie rock kind of thing. This next band was new to me, but they've been around for a little bit, and I feel like they're just one of many hidden treasure type of bands in the great United States. And that is the Nashville band The Medium with City Life, their third album.
We all look and feel the same. Everyone everyone sleeps with a
Jason from Taste Like Music had this in his top list for the year, and I feel like he said it really well. It's really all about that frontman and that voice. You know, it's a very bright, cheery, quirky tone. Definitely not for everyone. I think his name is Shane Perry. Channeling Elliott Smith a little bit at times if he was funnier and less intense. Rivers Cuomo comes to mind as well, and I feel like the music has that very Weezer-like kind of detached merriment. That's right. Detached merriment, guys. Next album name. But seriously, his voice is really good. I love his off-kilter use of vibrato. It's got kind of a classic 70s rock vibe to it, a little bit of folk, a little bit of country, but just very succinct and catchy songs that just stick to your brain. At number 24 is the Welsh musician Gruff Rhys with Sadness Sets Me Free. This guy was in the band Super Furry Animals. If you can get past the kind of indie mall music of the opening track of this next album, and you have a craving for that early 2010s indie psych pop sound, bands like Yeasayer, then number 23 might be your find of the year. This is a sleek, tasty little debut album from the LA-based band Peel called Acid Star. I'm especially a fan of the very washed out psychedelic sounds on this thing that give a distinctive Tame Impala or Temples vibe. At number 22 is an album that came out very early in the year, but I didn't hear it until December, and that is Asterisms by Shan Ono Lennon. That one. Experimental composer and just all-around musical mastermind John Zorn invited Shan to make an album for his label Sadiq Records. And a host of world-leading musicians joined Shan in the studio to record this live to tape. So it's very organic and warm sounding, and it's all these spacey jazz instrumentals, some progressive rock in there, some cinematic ambient stuff as well. It's 5 tracks and under 40 minutes long, so it's very digestible for an instrumental jazz album. And I love the melodies, you know, I love the playing, which is as good as you'd think it would be. You know, everyone is just killing it, including Shan on the guitar. Apparently he had jazz guitarist Julian Lage lined up to play on the album, but it fell through for him. He had some, personal thing going on. And then Nils Klein from Wilco came to Shan and said that he thought he should play guitar. So just imagine that, you have Julian Lage lined up to play on your album, and then you have to do it. I can't help but be drawn to Shan's career trajectory, his story. He comes from a place of great privilege in one sense, but he's also burdened in a sense by just the sheer weight of his parents' legacy. And I think he's dealt with that just about as well as anyone could. He's put out some great projects with Les Claypool, Lennon Delirium, also Ghost of a Saber-Toothed Tiger. I love that stuff. This is just a really solid, really replayable jazz prog instrumental album. At number 21 is kind of the quintessential modern psych pop band with all the electronic playfulness that genre has going on at the moment, and that is the band Crumb with a Mama. At number 20 is probably the most pure example of progressive metal on my list, although there is some more prog rock to come, and that is Caligula's Horse with their great new album, Charcoal Grace. One of the biggest snubs on all these end-of-year lists, I think, this year is usually one of the critics' darlings, and that is Tom York and Johnny Greenwood's new project, The Smile. I loved Wall of Eyes. That's got to be on this list. It's not all too dissimilar from Radiohead is really the trick with the smile. You know, you've got the presence and the voice of Tom York. I love the addition of the new drummer who brings this very kind of krautrock, dry, jazzy tone approach to the kit. You've got, you know, Johnny Greenwood's newfound sort of love for these very mathy riffs. I love that the trio doubled down on progressive rock, and this is a way for them to be freed of the legacy and the baggage of Radiohead and what that means. You know, it's a way for them to just make really, really good rock records instead of cultural defining ones. After 5 painful years with smothering darkness and gnashing of teeth, we finally get a new album from Chris Cohen at number 18. It's Paint a Room.
Purely logic, reason and rhyme come up short.
Chris Cohen is simply one of the most underrated artists in indie rock. You know, those first 2 albums are just all-timers for me. You know, I think he's one of the most creative writers and arrangers in rock. Paint a Room is characteristically meek and mild and unassuming, you know, from Chris, but I feel like the musos will really recognize game here. You know, they'll see the musicianship, they'll see the sophistication. Number 17 is a super fun one. This would be classified as neo-prog, a very unique album on my list, and that is Time Voyager from the Italian prog band The Baroque Project. Sprawling, romantic, adventurous neo-prog here. This kind of scratches the same itch as that Subsignal album did from last year. I love the orchestral element here. You know, it's really well integrated with the noodly prog. It's necessarily a little bit too much, a little bit corny, you know, as this cover art suggests. But tremendous songwriting. I love the lead vocalist, Alex Mari. His voice is kind of like a touch of Freddie Mercury and 80s metal bands and like the Styx singer. Vibrant, bright, melodic, ridiculous music. I love it. At number 16 is the distinctly English singer-songwriter, art rock, chamber pop, synth pop artist William Doyle with Springs Eternal. It's a very song-oriented album rather than this big mood piece, so a return to form for William Doyle. You know, the melodies are very direct, and he just makes the most of every single one. At number 15, I've got the sparkling collaboration between Esperanza Spalding, the jazz bassist, and Milton Nascimento, the Brazilian legend. There are covers on this thing of really big songs like Day in the Life, an Earth song. There are original tracks, there are Nascimento tracks. Esperanza especially just seems to be having the time of her life working with Milton. You know, he is one of her idols, and I love how also she kind of taps into Emily's D+ Evolution and kind of the prog rock of that album, which is my favorite album by her. The musicianship here is just undeniable. At number 14 is another collaboration album, this time between Madison Cunningham and Andrew Bird. This is also a full cover album of the 1973 album Buckingham Nicks by Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. I did not think this was going to do it for me, but I was wrong. Don't try to change them, you never will. At number 13 is the sleekest, the shiniest, the glossiest pop album on my list this year. It's Magdalena Bay with Imaginal Disc. They almost had me on that first album. It had some huge songs, some humongous hits, but this one, from front to back, is chock full of interestingly written and just irresistible electropop. It's kind of retro futurism, psychedelic and swirling and funky and danceable. The singles are amazing, but deep cuts like Watching TV or Cry For Me are so great. Kind of show their roots in prog, you know, which is interesting because on the Pitchfork series where they share their 10 out of 10 albums, they shared selling England by the Pound, which I also have behind me today. So yeah, add Magdalena Bay to my short list of favorite modern pop acts. My friend once said about an album that it was a grower, not a shower, and that very much applies to number 12 by Luke Temple, It's Certain Limitations. Kind of hazy, folky, jazzy, psychedelic indie rock, a little Floydian. And with that very broad description, I'll just say that this album really encapsulates probably one of my favorite genres. It's a little bit like that Chris Cohen album. And at number 11, also similar to Chris Cohen, this is one of my favorite modern artists right now. It's Kieran Leonard from Manchester with his album Real Home. Indie rock would be a really crude description of this. Art rock, a little bit warmer, Baroque post-punk. You're getting hot. Kieran's acerbic delivery and avant-garde composition make his music nearly impenetrable. It's certainly abrasive at times, punky, groggy, angular, but there's also very lush acoustic instrumentation and clever melodicism. Lush piano, warm acoustic guitar. Listen to the 1-2 punch of the song Void Attentive, which is an instrumental, and then My Love, Let's Take the Stage Tonight. You know, it perfectly demonstrates the kind of tension building, dissonance on one hand, and then this just beautiful melodic song in the next. Kieran's also just too literate for his own good. But albums like Grapefruit and Daravan are just modern classics to me. Like, I do not understand how those go under the radar with the pitchforks of the world. And Real Home is a return to form for me, for Kieran. You know, he's not an artist that everyone's really gonna get. You know, his voice takes time, his just style, his kind of frenetic approach. It takes a little bit of time, but it's very much worth it, and he deserves the number 11 on this list. The countdown is on. Thanks for waiting around for this video. The next one will be my top 10 albums of the year, and then I'm going to do a couple top 10 songs lists. I think I'm going to split up top 10 prog songs of the year and top 10 something like pop and indie rock songs of the year. I might also do a video with my wife, you know, the classic annual thing. And then we'll look forward to 2025 with more music recommendations and reviews. If you came this year, if you joined, thank you so much. I will be back very soon. And as always, thank you so much for watching.